Hello everyone and welcome back to Hero Builds for part 2 of the Mk45 Ironman build. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the chest, arms and gloves of the suit and how they interact with each other. We'll also look in detail at how the chest and how the hand repulsors were made and what's keeping everything going. Straight into the arm then, you'll see that it consists mainly of 4 pieces. We'll have the bicep, the forearm, the hand plate and the glove. I'll talk more about that in the next clip, so let me just put that one to the side for the minute. Starting with the bicep, initially this started off as 2 pieces joined, which included this elbow section, but I found the elbow was quite obstructive at the joint when moving. So what I did was cut the elbow section off and reattach it with some elastic, just to allow that more movement when the arm was extending. On the forearm again then, there were 2 pieces joined together with an inner piece on the majority of the inside. This piece mainly held the silver details and ran across the back, but this seemed to be one of the causes of the obstruction in the joint. After some trial and error, I found the easy solution was just to cut it out and then replace the joint with some flexible metallic elastic. I think this created this fantastic mechanical look as an inner layer or an undersuit. It helped to cover up the inside bit then as well. Having a closer look at the elastic, you'll see that it acts like any other, but with the benefit of having that metallic shine. I really love the look of this and how versatile it was throughout the suit, not only with the elbow, but with the glove and a few other places too. The hand plate is very simply attached to the forearm with a piece of plain elastic glued up on both sides. This allows the hand plate to move as the hand moves in any direction, but will always revert back to that original position. Moving to the inside of the arm now then, and disregarding the scrapes from previous test fits, this is where you can get a look at the inner joint. I went with a simple setup using cable ties for connecting the arm. A cheap way to do it, but still the best way to do it for me after the 4 or 5 different hinge setups that I tried. With them in place though the way they are, it gives a great range of motion and doesn't seem to be hindered by any plastics or inner elastics. Now the elbows will eventually be upgraded to look a bit more appealing, but for now I'm happy enough with how it looks and it seems to do the job. Back up to the top of the arm then, there's 2 clips in place to connect the arms to the shoulder for security and 2 cables for the hands. The shoulder bell will sit over the top, and once everything has been connected up, there won't be anything visible on the exterior. The 2 cables will run the full length of the arm and connect to the hand for the read sensor switch and for the repulsor LEDs located in the palm. So that pretty much sums up the arms. Let's get on to the hands. For the gloves, the setup would be the same then for both hands, with each having a reed switch and the repulsor inside them. The hands consist of a main piece and a backing plate attached to an elastic on one side and a magnet on the other. There's then 2 printed pieces for the thumb and 3 pieces for each of the fingers, and you can also see more of that metallic elastic being used on the cuffs. Then finally the 2 cables from the wrist on each of the gloves to connect to the arm as previously seen. To actually put the glove on then, it's a simple case of the backing plate coming away from the magnet and the elastic allows it to flex open. When the hands are then in place, the magnet securely fastens and keeps everything in the right position. The cuff elastic that you see then was glued directly to the inner glove, as was the case for each of the fingers. I found that with gluing them directly to the glove, it allowed the fingers to have a more natural look and gain the full range of motion needed. On the inside, the hand repulsor is glued in place with the cable coming out the bottom for accessibility. The repulsor consists of 5 LEDs, which I'll go into in a bit more depth, just on how they were made and how I got this final circular blaster effect. The reed sensors are located at the base of the thumb and are enclosed in foam to protect them. They are then glued into their positions with super glue and a bit of hot glue. If you look at the inside of the thumb, you can see the bottom of the magnet then that activates the sensor. To note, the sensor is programmed with a delay just so that it can't be set off accidentally if it does come in contact briefly with the switch. Also worth a mention is the new upgraded gold version of the glove then for more authenticity. The trouble initially was the paint flaking off the glove, but I seem to have remedied this. I found that if the same bright gold was used but then coated entirely with clear flexible plastic dip, and after about 2 or 3 coats had fully cured, it allowed the glove to handle a wee bit more abuse without the paint coming off. The last thing needed then to get that sorted is the bottom of the cuff with more of the metallic elastic. Once that's done, there'll be another set of gloves upgraded to the gold inner glove for that even more realistic look. The first thing used on the hand repulsors then were these micro model 3V LEDs, which have just hooked up to two AA batteries for demonstration. This is then covered up with some light diffusing acrylic, which is used to get rid of any of the LED hotspots. The exterior detail of the repulsor was created by this plastic lens of a spot bulb. You may not notice, but some of these come with a really nice pattern, very akin to the repulsor details. Although some of these may come out a bit thick, you can always cut them down and trim them up to get the right fit for your glove. The one I ended up going with was this flat lens with this inner 3D ring effect, which gives off a multi-layer look. There's a lot of depth to it and really creates that repulsor look. The last thing needed then is just a bit of tape to keep everything secure. Looking at what process then it took to get the final result, I first started off with the micro LEDs, which look something like this. In total there is 5 LEDs per glove. If you are looking for these, they're most commonly associated with model train sets, but if you search for micro LEDs you should be able to find them. I then fixed the LEDs to the light diffusing acrylic in a circular shape and then secured them down with some super glue and hot glue. The lens cover was attached to the acrylic after it had been trimmed down to the correct size. Finally everything was taped down and sealed into the glove, with those wires coming out the wrist for that quick release fit. For me, seeing the chest put together was one of the best parts of the build, as it really brought the suit to life, and especially when that arc reactor went in. The whole chest consists of a total of 6 pieces, 4 making up the centre and 1 at each side at the top. One of the main things I love the most is the hexagonal shape for the arc reactor that you just don't see on other suits. For the shoulders, they consisted of 2 pieces joined together and are connected to the top of the chest with an elastic strap, with some of that metallic elastic covering up the gap at the top. There are 2 clips attached underneath for the arm, which the shoulder will lift up to allow them to be connected into when the suit is initially being put on. More detail on how the chest repulsor was made, you'll see all the bits I used. I'll use this back up as reference to see everything working together at the end. The first thing was to get a starting circular shape, which happened to come across in this portable work light. The shape and size were perfect for the suit, but I needed to get rid of that horrible looking yellow LED. I decided to strip it down and see what it looked like, and when the case was off, I could separate the parts that I needed and throw the other ones away. And this is what it looked like stripped down with a hole in the middle of it. And the next part then was to fill the gap left by the previous yellow looking LED. So again I used another bulb lens with a more rounded centre just to give more of that 3D look. Found that with any of the LEDs that I used to test required a bit of diffusion, so another piece of that acrylic was then used. So the main thing was I still needed some LEDs to light up the arc reactor, and when hunting about I came across this mini torch. The great thing about it was that the wires of the LEDs were all ready to go and it powers off only 4.5 volts. On closer inspection then, all I figured I needed to do was to get rid of the outer casing and attach some new power cables. And this is what I came up with. So with the 2 power cables in place and the LEDs in the right position, the acrylic can be mounted directly on top. And then the bulb lens cover just mounted on top of that also. After everything was then trimmed down and fixed into the correct place using super glue, this is the final outcome. A bright but not blinding Mk45 arc reactor. On the inside of the chest then there's quite a simple setup. There's fixing points both on the chest and the back to connect them together, and that will be done via magnets at the top and connection points on either side. The connection points on the side are actually 2 parts of a hinge that were mounted on each side and then secured together with the hinge pin. This means that when the suit's getting put on, there's a nice secure and flush finish to the exterior side. On the shoulders you can see the 2 clips then to connect the arm up, and the elastic fitted directly to the chest via super glue. Again, just like the hand plate, this allows the shoulder to move any way it needs to, but always reverts back to that same resting position. For the two power cables, you'll see one is powering the arc reactor, where it is connected to a 5 volt to 4.5 volt step down converter cable, with the arc reactor being hot glued in place. The cables for the repulsors attached to a 5 volt to 3 volt step down cable. This cable runs up the chest and splits off to either shoulder and connects up to the female side attached to the upper part of each arm. To power all the LEDs, I have this 5 volt USB rechargeable power bank. This sits just at the top of the abs section of the suit for that unobstructed fit.